In this video, I'm going to show how to use Desmos to create a design using functions. So here's a couple of examples. First, these are some examples from previous year's students. And so what we're going to do is we're going to create equations that make lines and then create some kind of neat design. So let's start by just making sure that you're logged into Desmos or have an account created first and then log in. And let's give this project a name. So I'm going to call it Desmos Art Project. And I'm going to want to save this. Hit this save button lets you save your changes, and you're going to want to do that often so you don't lose anything you do. So let's start by creating a function and then positioning it, and we're going to do that using sliders. So we're going to start with a linear function, and instead of giving specific values, we're going to use a variable. So we're going to say y equal to a x and then plus b, and you can see it asks you if you want to add those sliders, which you can control the value of. So we're going to add both of the sliders, and then you can see it, the line appears, and if you drag the slider, it lets you position your slider where you like. And you could also move the grid and zoom in and out. And so let's kind of position it to a location. We'll call it good there. And then let's look at how can we only take part of this graph. For example, over here, this diagonal line is only from here to here. So let's say we want this line to only be from 5 on the x-axis to 10 on the x-axis. In order to do that, we can put in the curly bracket and then put in 5 less than x, less than symbol again, and 10. And this tells Desmos to only have this line show up between 5 and 10 on the x value. And you could also do this up and down. So instead of x, you can put y. So for example, if I decide I want this line to be from maybe 2 or 3 up to 10, I can do curly bracket, 3 less than, now we're going to use y, and 10. So this line only starts at 3 and goes up to 10. We'll make it just a little bit shorter. And then once you have that positioned, we're going to do another function, but we're going to have the same variables here, a and b, control it. So once you have this line, let's put this, these numbers into a. For example, 0.5 is a, so we can delete 0.5. We can delete a and put in 0.5, and then we'll delete b and put in 2.6. And then you can delete these sliders because the next equation is going to use these same sliders. And if you don't do that, both graphs are going to move at the same time. So let's delete that. And this time I'm going to use a square root graph. So I'm going to go y equal to, go to the keyboard, square root, and I'm going to type it in as a in the front, then b, x, minus h. And then on the outside, I'm going to put in plus k. So I got all these types of transformations I can do. I'm going to hit all. And then again, I could use the sliders to get this line positioned. So for example, let's position it maybe like that. And then I want this graph to start at the tip here and then end maybe where above where this red line is. So I can press and drag, and I know the lowest point of the purple line is about 0.85, it looks like, on the x-axis. So I'm going to go from 0.85 to about 4.94. So I'm going to type in curly bracket, 0.85 less than x less than, I think it was 3.94. or something like that, and I can go back and play around with my values. So that's kind of the general idea of positioning graphs and functions in order to create and constrain the lines. And then again, I would take in the values once I have them settled down, and I could put in 1.2. And if I want to slightly adjust, I could also adjust over here, so I can say maybe 1.25, and it's going to change it slightly. B was 1.9, H was 1.6, and then K was 3.1. And I'll go through and delete my sliders for my next graph. Another thing to note is we're going to want to make these lines black, because that's what shows up the best when it gets laser engraved. So you can click on the gear, and let's change both of these lines to black. And so now we can go from there. Another kind of useful thing is maybe finding a design that you like, finding an image that you like online, saving it to your iPad or the computer, and then using graphs to trace over it. So for example, what I'll do is I'll hit the plus sign, and I'll go to image, and I saved mine into the downloads folder. So I'm going to use the logo of the Chicago Bears. Let me turn off these lines, and I'm going to start to make an equation that can trace this logo. So maybe I'm thinking I can use another square root. Well, just for the sake of trying something else, I'm going to use a quadratic. So I'm going to go y equal to a x minus h squared plus k. Also going to put a b in the front, hit all, and so I can start to trace out different parts of this logo. So I'm going to move it up just a little. Maybe I want to get this part of the C. Move it over, and it's going to have to be a couple different graphs in order to get that full design. So I'm going to say this is going to be the part I want. Let's look at where I need to cut this graph off. So it looks like negative 3.17 until 0.778. Might be helpful to write it down so you don't forget. Negative 3.17 it was until 0.8. And you could also turn off and on the design to see how it looks like without it. And then again, I can put in my numbers. So I have negative 0.1, B was 0.9, H was 0.7, and K was 3.3. And then I can delete the sliders. One other thing to kind of note that, let's make this A again. And if you hit the gear, you can actually make this go up by, instead of 0.1, you could make it go up by less by making step like 0.01, for example. Now when you drag the slider, you should be able to have less jerky movements. 0.01, you can also go 0.001, see if that does anything. And then once you again settle on a number that works, you can put it into your equation, get rid of your sliders, and continue to build up from there. So that's kind of the basics of using equations to create a Desmos design. And again, look through the project guide, and there's a bunch of examples that you can look at from previous years.